welcome to Harvey P Watches. As always, thank you to those who have liked and subscribed to my videos. I really appreciate everyone who does this. Today's episode is a little different, as dipping into my dad's watch collection, I pulled out this Omega Planet Ocean 600. However, Dad said, as this was a fairly recent model, bought in 2018, I would be better off talking about my own Omega. I also have a small collection of watches, and in it I have a very special watch that was gifted to me when I was 7 years old by a lady called Mrs. Lauri Murakami in the USA, of which I would like to say thank you for. This is my 1985 Omega Speedmaster Professional, which is also called Moon Watch, as it was the first watch worn on the moon. What makes this particular watch extra special is that it once belonged to a former NASA test pilot called John Winfield. The watch also has Mr. Winfield's initials engraved into the bracelet. Mrs. Murakami told me that her husband, Mr. Murakami, was a dentist at Van Nuys Boulevard in San Fernando Valley, California for 38 years. Mr. Winfield was a patient of his, and he gave them to Mr. Murakami as a present, perhaps for looking after his teeth so well, as it is important for astronauts and test pilots to have good teeth with no fillings in them. We are currently researching the history of Mr. Winfield, who we have believed was stationed at Edwards Air Force Base in Southern California, which was also the landing spot for the space shuttle for much of his history. In addition to the Omega watch, Mr. Winfield also gave Mr. Murakami both his flight suit and his leather flying jacket, and so they are an important part of the watch's history. As such with the watch, I was also received a flight suit. Can you believe that this has 12 pockets? And also this flight jacket. Many of the badges have been removed from the jacket, apart from this one showing the V2-102 Diamondbacks, which is Strike Fighter Squadron 102. The Omega Speedmaster Professional was first introduced in 1957 as a sports and racing chronograph, and was part of Omega's Professional collection alongside the Seamaster 300 and the Railmaster. In 1962, NASA bought a number of watches for evaluation, as they needed a watch that astronauts could wear in space outside of their ship. NASA bought a number of watches including Omega, Rolex, Breitling and Hamilton. The watches were then subject to extreme temperatures, humidity, shocks, vibrations, and a whole series of other tests, and when they were concluded, only the Omega Speedmaster passed every test. In 1965, Omega Speedmasters were worn for both the Gemini 3 and Gemini 4 programs, being strapped to the outside of the astronaut spacesuit. But that was not the only mission in 1965, as I found another one quite by chance. One of my favourite TV programmes is Thunderbirds, and in the original series I could not believe it when watching a 1965 episode called The Imposters. One of the characters is aboard a spaceship and was actually shown to be wearing an Omega Speedmaster. Have a look, although blink and you will miss it. Amazing that a children's TV programme like that incorporated the watch with no mention of it whatsoever, just a quick shot of it. The programme's creator, Jerry Anderson, must have been really on the ball. In 1969, the Omega Speedmaster really shot to frame with NASA's Apollo 11 mission when man first went to the moon. Both astronauts, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, were wearing Omega Speedmaster watches, but when they left their lunar module to step on the moon, the watch became the first watch worn on the moon. Neil Armstrong had left his watch in the lunar module due to a failed electric timer, although Buzz Aldrin was still wearing his. Here is a photo of Buzz Aldrin on the moon, and if we zoom in, we can see his Omega. The Omega Speedmaster has been worn by many astronauts since on many missions, and it is still worn by many astronauts today on shuttle missions. Even after all these years at this point in time, this is still the only watch qualified to worn by an astronaut engaged in any activity in space outside of the ship. Although the watch was never designed for space, after the moon landing, it forever became known as the Moon Watch and became one of Omega's most famous watches. Today it retails around £3,500 to £4,000. So let's have a look at the watch. Whilst it was designed in 1957, over the years changes to the watch have been pretty small, so each generation heavily resembles the original. Of 39mm across, it is also a great size when so many other analogue watches of the time were so much smaller. As you can see, if we compare it with this 1991 Omega Devil that once belongs to my granddad. I also really like the black dial and the lack of numbers on the face. It makes it look a lot more serious looking. The hour markings are also luminous, which you can see if we switch off the lights. Although I guess after 35 years they are not as bright as they were once. The watch certainly doesn't look out of place with modern watches and is very robust with a stainless steel case and bracelet and a fairly scratch resistant plexiglass. The first thing you will note is the bezel around the edge. This acted as a tachymeter and when used with the chronograph function was used to measure the speed. Dad says there is a clever way that if you time something moving and you know the distance it has travelled, then you can work out the speed. The watch has 3 inner dials which are from left to right, the second hand. A minute timer for the chronograph function and an hour elapsed counter also for the chronograph. What looks like a large second hand is actually the chronograph second hand. To operate the chronograph, you press the top left button to stop and start again if needed. If we fast forward in time a bit, we can see how the sub-dials start to move. So now we are about 25 minutes in and you can see how the minute dial has moved right round and the hour dial is starting to move. To reset the chronograph, we then press the bottom left button. When you press all the dials and second hand resets instantly. The crown is for setting the time and winding the watch. Fully wound, this watch seems to have a power reserve of around 48 hours. As you can see, the crown also has the Omega logo on it. If we turn the watch over, you can see that it proudly states flight qualified by NASA for all manned space missions, and below that, the first watch worn on the moon. On the inside of the back cover, it appears to have some characters and the number 94 possibly from when it was last serviced. Under the cover sits an anti-magnetic shield. Underneath the anti-magnetic cover is just amazing, as it reveals almost a work of art with Omega's caliber 861 movement with 17 jewels. Don't get me wrong, I love digital watches, but when you look in the back of them, there just isn't any soul. Looking in the back of the Omega, it is like it's alive, and you can see its little heart beating. So there you have it, perhaps the coolest watch ever. The first watch worn on the moon, the Omega Speedmaster Professional. I love it to bits. The model is still made and available today, with a whole host of variations, especially lots of limited edition versions celebrating man's first step on the moon. Apparently, Omega is currently designing a Speedmaster suitable for manned mission to Mars, planned for 2030. Whilst making this video, I also came across the Moon to Mars Omega Speedmaster that features images of the Earth, the Moon and Mars in the subdials. That is just so amazing. One day when I'm older, I will get it as a brother to my watch. At the moment, my Omega Speedmaster is too big for me, and so it is locked away for safekeeping until I'm an adult. Dad says when it fits me, he will then take it to Omega to get it fully serviced. I just can't wait. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed these videos and would like to see more watches, please hit the like key and perhaps maybe subscribe. You can see more of our watches at www.modestwatches.com, or you can see my website at www.harveyp.com. Thank you for watching. Have a great day. Stay safe. Bye.